it really takes the joy away from training. And that's reps in reserve, or rate of perceived exertion. It's basically training to the point of failure and then you stop, which I always found to be a little bit like edging. You're almost there and then you stop. The pleasurable moment is not occurring. Vigorous Steve here with an update regarding losing cognition and productivity when training insane all the freaking time. Because that's basically the old me. I would train insane 5 days a week, take about 10 sets to failure. My overall volume would be about 20 sets, decent amount of warm-ups, couple field sets, couple climatizing sets to the exercise, then do one working set and perhaps a back-off set afterwards to get the same amount of reps for a weight that's about 80%, 75% of my previous working weight. Now, for me, on particular body parts, the next day I would lose cognition, given that I was training in the evening, and if I was training in the morning, I would lose cognition, after leg day or back day for the majority of the day. I would just sit at the computer screen staring, being half zoned out, a little bit of endorphins and dopamine, and just physically being tired and drained. So I mentioned that on the BioBros episode 6 podcast, and Derek agreed with me a little bit because he trains early in the morning and then he gets all his work done. And, after I noticed that I was losing productivity and a little bit of cognition later in the day, I started moving my workouts to the end of the day. So I get all my work done previously. And then when I feel mentally tired, I get my workout in, and then I'm physically tired and I go to bed. So that's one way around it, where you space your workout to the end of the day, and then you have your post-workout shake and perhaps a meal and maybe a snack before bed to keep the gain train and the anabolism going overnight. And then the next day, I feel pretty refreshed, given it's not a leg day. Now, what I've noticed in the last 2 weeks, after going back to the gym, is that I used to be a little bit against this because it really takes the joy away from training. And that's reps in reserve, or rate of perceived exertion. It's basically training to the point of failure and then you stop, which I always found to be a little bit like edging. You're almost there and then you stop. The pleasurable moment is not occurring. That's what I always thought about reps in reserve. Now, the reason why I'm doing reps in reserve now, and why I can highly recommend it, is because you're no longer training to failure. And it's this training to failure, even if you manage your volume and really do your exercise selection correctly, it's this training to failure multiple times during a workout. And whether that's 6 sets to failure, 10 sets, or, maybe more, 12 to 15 sets, that's probably a little bit too much. And take it from me, being on a decent amount of pharmaceuticals to promote recovery, anabolism, and hyperplasia, that's also a killer combo for being sleepy all day. So that's what I'm trying to avoid in the future. And if I'm going to handicap myself with, a low dose stack of anabolics and perhaps a little bit of growth hormone, not a dose of growth hormone that is going to make me sleepy and make me lose productivity, that also means I have less recovery capacity than I did previously. So that means going forward, I'm going to leave reps in reserve, or edge my way through the workouts. Perfect range of motion, perfect time under tension. And when the going gets tough and I need to overstimulate my central nervous system to get those last few reps in, I'm going to call it quits. Because that's where most of my loss of productivity and fatigue and, feeling a little bit lethargic the next day was coming from. So I'm not going to do that. And I could recommend people who have already built the majority of their foundation and the physique that they strive to have. Again, if you want to build your physique, gain another 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 kilos of additional muscle mass, that training intensity is required, and there's probably no way around it unless you force the anabolics, and that will obviously detract from your health. So I'm trying to find a nice balance here going forward, and I saw it in Derek's comment section when this clip was posted on the More Plates, More Dates YouTube channel, is that some people get additional energy from training early in the morning, and then they feel very productive for the rest of the day. And some people feel the same way I did and Derek did. As soon as they train early, everything after that is not as productive as they want it to be. And I honestly think it has to do with training intensity. It's clear that not everybody trains with the same intensity. Otherwise, everybody would be gigantic, obviously, right? And then have this insane amount of muscle maturity that mostly comes from training insane. So when you've built that muscle that you want it to have, which is where I am at right now. I mean, I'm already up to 93 kilos this morning just by adding in the protein, a little bit of carbs and fats and going back to the gym. That's from 85.5 kilos to 93. Yeah, comes back fast when you have that muscle maturity and muscle memory built through strenuous workouts in the past. But now that I'm going forward, I'm not going to do it anymore. So the last couple of days, I simply abstain from training to failure, anywhere close to failure. I just do perfect reps. And when I feel that my form or tempo breaks down, I stop, which is difficult because of course, I would do that with field sets or sets for climatizing, right? To get to that working weight or in between different exercises. Let's say you do a dumbbell press, heavy working set, back off set, and then you go to dumbbell fly. I would do maybe 2 acclimatizing sets just to get the range of motion and the mind-muscle connection under control, and then really mentally prepare myself for another set to failure and perhaps beyond, depending on how much food I was eating and how much anabolics I was taking. But now, I will still do the same amount of volume, basically, but in that volume is not going to be anything to failure. Maybe the last exercise of the workout, I will take the failure maybe with a little bit of a spot, when all the warm-up and the time under tension and obviously reps in reserve have already been performed. So maybe I will do 1 working set to failure, not 10 anymore. So I think that going forward, that's pretty much a way around it. Still keeping the intensity going, but not an intensity that is going to tax my central nervous system. Again, it's this, training to failure and beyond failure that is taxing your central nervous system. But time under tension, executing the reps perfectly, slow negative, explosive positive, not too explosive again, because that's, central nervous system taxation. And especially, resistance bands and a progressive resistance, which I always enjoyed, but, puts a tremendous strain in your central nervous system because it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier as you're proceeding through the repetition. So it's, again, finding a balance between having a really enjoyable workout and taking the performance enhancing drugs or the pre-workout and that kind of stuff that comes along with it. I'll probably have to reel it back. And most people who reel it back a couple steps notice that they have more productivity during the day. And for the guys that never experienced that kind of intensity, they'll probably still, they're probably in the sweet spot. Honestly, you're probably in the sweet spot where you have an enjoyable workout. You don't take it too far and you still have a very productive day. Because that's ideally what you want, as if you're self-employed or you're working a position where you need to be very cognitive and perform a lot of work. Maybe it's better not to train insane all the time. Maybe once a week, Friday, Saturday, when you can afford a day of rest. So I moved my leg day to Saturday evening. Saturday, I would usually have a pre-cheat meal. On Saturday, it's weekend, I want to relax a little bit. So I would do my leg day Saturday evening. Gym's usually empty by the time, so that's more workout equipment available for me. Win-win situation. And then after my leg day, I would have like a moderate cheat meal or something a little bit more off plan. And then Sunday, I could afford to lose a little bit of cognition. So I could still do a heavy-ass quad day on Saturday, get a little cheat meal in, and then Sunday I can afford to lose a little bit of cognition because it's usually my off day anyway from work. Even though, considering the workload that I'm under, it's usually half a day of work on Sunday. So that's 6.5 days work week for me. And again, guys, I don't really mind working 6.5 days a week because it helps with brand recognition tremendously and helps me reach my goals a little bit faster. So I don't really mind. Plus, I've been coaching people for almost a decade now. And that means you basically get no days off because people always have questions and need a little bit of assistance when you're coaching them. And of course, coaching is basically full-time access. So 6.5 days per week I'm available. And even if for emergency, I'm always available on Sunday evening as well. So I don't mind losing a little bit of cognition on Sunday by moving my leg day to Saturday evening, where most people are enjoying themselves and I'm basically torturing myself, right? So, because those quads still need to come up and I do need to take a couple sets to failure. Sunday I can lose cognition because half the day, is work and the other half of the day is enjoyment. By going out, having a couple meals that I want, watching a movie or 2 or 3. Sometimes you go to the cinema and then I have 2 movies loaded, ready to go when I get home. So it's a whole day of relaxation and sweet, sweet recovery. What you need after a leg day, obviously. So, to bring it all back and summarize it a little bit, if you want the optimal best cognition and productivity possible, you would have to move your workout to the end of the day. And whether that's training 3 days a week, honestly, guys, I don't think that push-pull legs is very conducive for productivity because those workouts are usually very, very long. And again, you still want to have, a very good working sets, at least time under tension and good range of motion and quality reps, right, at the end of your workout. So if you do chest, then shoulders, then triceps, and then maybe abs, it's still a 2-hour workout. And the longer you train, the more cortisol is going to go up and you get a little bit of catabolism and stress response and that kind of stuff. So I'm training 4 days a week right now, which is the best split for me. I still do push-pull legs, but I split up my legs. So I have push, legs, pull legs, basically. But I keep those workouts to 1.5 hours. And some workouts are maybe 1 hour, 15 minutes. And the other 3 evenings of the week, I can work for as long as I want to. Whether that's 8 o'clock in the evening or 9 o'clock in the evening, at least I don't have to go to the gym and I can just have a whole day of productivity and I don't feel tired from the day previously because I was edging or leaving reps in reserve or, training like a general gym rat or Instagram model by not training sets to failure. Which is probably more difficult than, grinding your socks off day in, day out, day in, day out. But then I'll have to settle for less from a business perspective, which I'm not willing to do anymore. So, hope this helps, guys. Basically, it's about balance. And you still have to find a way to make your workouts enjoyable without detracting from your productivity the next day or a couple days later. Delayed onset of muscle soreness is also loss of productivity because you sit there basically in pain. and sitting there in pain is also not very helpful for productivity. Hope this helps. Thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides to bodybuilding pharmacology, you can find the ebooks on my website, vigoroussteve.com/shop. Vigorous Crew, front double bicep for you guys. I know you asked for it, but here it is. Slowly coming back, 8 kilos, almost 8 kilos up already in 2 weeks by not training insane. So imagine if I was training insane. Anyway, maybe 1 day a week. If you're looking for personalized advice, you can find the rates to my services in the services section. Contact me directly. If you're interested, follow me on Instagram at @VigorSteve. Much love. See you guys in next video.